Well, that took the I took the wrong button. Here we are, Spencer Horn with Teams Unleashed, and I want to do that again because it's supposed to be this. Are you
There we
ready?
go. I'm
Let's
ready.
do it the right way. We will edit that out when we go live, and you got mistakes when you go live, and that's what makes this so much fun. But welcome everybody to Teams Unleashed. This is the podcast where we explore the art and science of team coaching and how to truly unlock the power of human potential of teams. And I'm your host, Spencer Horn, and I'm the president of Team Coaching International. And today we are going somewhere where, that's new on Teams Unleashed. Today we are going into the nonprofit sector. And one of the fastest changing, most under-resourced, and frankly, most values-aligned spaces for team coaching that I can think of. And my guest today has been building a bridge into that sector for 15 years. I've got a bio. I'm gonna read a little bit about that. But Betsy Block is a team coach with over 30 years of experience in private sector, government, and nonprofit sectors. She has served in leadership roles in both municipal government and regional nonprofit and philanthropy, as well as on the boards of both national and regional nonprofit organizations. And she is active as both a mentor coach and a credentialed coach supervisor in organizations. And that's really cool. So in addition to her working and supporting teams as they navigate management changes, she recently founded Agate Initiative. The Agate Initiative. Did I say that right, Betsy?
You said it right the first time without the. Branding experts are great when they tell you
Just
you don't need
Agate Initiative. There we
Agate
go.
Initiative.
So, and that the focus of that is to really expand access to systemic team coaching in the nonprofit sector, which is the focus of today. And Betsy, I've got to read some of your bona fides because people who are listening, they want to know just how amazing you are. I do. Betsy holds an MPP from the University of California, Berkeley, Goldman School of Public Policy, plus a BA from Boston University. Wow. She holds the Global Individual Accreditation, EIA, Senior Practitioner, Individual Team Coach Award, ITCA, Senior Practitioner, and MCC. This is a lot of letters. I mean, I've got like more than the whole alphabet here. Also, the Professional Certified Coach, PCC, and advanced credentials in team coaching, which is the ACTC from the International Coaching Federation. And she's been featured in Choice Magazine for coaches on supporting inclusivity in meetings, as well as the Authority Magazine, an article navigating conflict, which is, interestingly enough, a big issue in nonprofits and everywhere, and helping teams embrace constructive conflict. So today we are so happy to have you. Welcome, Betsy, to Teams Unleashed.
I'm excited to be here, Spencer. Thanks.
Thank you for your flexibility. I'm a little discombobulated, if you haven't guessed today, because my internet was down. I had to take everything apart, and as a result, I wasn't quite ready. And so my pre-programmed buttons for my videos are all wrong. And
I'm
so
a big believer that there's no such thing as a mistake. And I think there's a message in that, which is nonprofits are getting everything thrown at them from every which way, and they have to keep showing up with their absolute best no matter what gets ripped out from under them. And so in a lot of ways, it's a great metaphor for stepping into a conversation. This
is just life today, right? In the Bonnie world that we live in, just the crazy, chaotic world. Thank you, listeners, and Betsy, for understanding. Before we get into the Agate Initiative, I want our listeners to just really understand, the past 15 years you've been coaching nonprofit teams. Yeah. What drew you to that work, and especially, the nonprofit sector, and what does this work that you do mean to you?
Yeah, I can point to two really specific points in my journey, which I was working as vice president at United Way of the Bay Area, and I was leading a federal grant for capacity building. And the goal was to implement a data system. The participants in Spark Point which is a program that they run that does a lot of amazing outreach in the community. And we were working on implementation and adoption of this tool. And you can predict this, Spencer, but as somebody who had been really focused on data and implementations and, going back to my private sector experience, the resistance we encountered had nothing to do with technical skill. It had nothing to do with the tool. It had nothing to do with any of the things that were on paper. And it had everything to do with identity, with adopting change, with navigating who we were as a team and how we were seen. And I remember somebody saying to me, I'm here because I care about each individual. I'm not here to plug numbers into a data system. And so that really turned on my receptors to adapting to change in the nonprofit sector means honoring who we are and honoring how we shift through change. And nonprofits don't shift like for-profits do. And I spent enough time being a fairly senior manager in the for-profit sector before making a big career shift to say, yeah, I've managed all of it. And nonprofits, by and large, are different because we're mission-minded. So that was one big point in my journey. And I think the second point in the journey that really, really shifted was during my training as a team coach. One of the requirements in my certification program was to define your world work. A lot of us who choose to be team coaches don't do this because we have just a profit motive in mind. We often do it because of human connection, because of human relationship. And so it's natural for team coaches to come through training and define, this is the mark that I might make on the world by learning these skills. You don't just get to be selfish about it. And I had come across the work of the Coaching and Philanthropy Project, which was conducted over 15 years ago. The report was published in I believe, 2010. And many names that you and I both know, kind of luminaries in the coaching world, were involved in this study that made the case for why philanthropy should fund nonprofits. But 15 years ago, there was not an advanced certification in team coaching. 15 years ago, the team coaching training programs that we know were just getting founded. There weren't clearly codified team coaching competencies. And so there is a casual mention in the coaching and philanthropy study about team coaching as something useful in the nonprofit and social sector. And so my world work was, how do we get that addressed? How do we make sure that we update everybody's awareness of where team coaching fits in here? It was a glimmer in that report, but how do we tell that story more? So that speaks to, the two things about, there's this story to tell about why team coaching matters for nonprofits. And what's it going to take to bust open that door for team coaching in the nonprofit sector the way the coaching and philanthropy study did for executive and leadership coaching?
I'm really interested in how you have found that team coaching works with the nonprofit sector dynamic with change that you described. It seems like it would fit very, very well, because so much of what we're looking at and measuring it ties to that mission mindedness that you were talking about. How do you sustain your ability to deliver the mission, to change the way you need to? Well, you have to maintain the identity of what is important to the mission. And so many people get involved in nonprofit work because you mentioned identity, because they identify with a mission or a cause, or they want to, you talked about doing this work for so many of the satisfactory outcomes that you have in terms of relationship. Getting a paycheck is
Yeah.
wonderful byproduct of doing that well. But many people go into the nonprofit world for the very same reasons. They're not looking for a big paycheck. They're looking for meaning. They're looking for
Well,
a
I don't
way
want
to
to dismiss like the right to get a great paycheck in the nonprofit sector because it's meaningful work. I think what you're pointing at is team coaching is so aligned with the values
yes,
that people in the nonprofit sector often hold. And one of those being community and connection, right? There's the concept of civic
correct.
trusteeship. I will plant a tree I will never sit under. And most people who choose to go into nonprofit work believe in that. And that's so highly
And
aligned.
that's first, usually, right? Yeah,
Right. Yeah. And also, there's a challenge in it, which is that so often in the nonprofit sector, we see scarcity mindset.
yeah,
And so that sometimes is a big disconnect because team coaching is an investment of time and resource. And it's
yeah.
a high, to borrow a corporate term, it's a high ROI investment, relatively speaking, to trying to invest in people one by one and expecting the organization to change. Um,
So this
so
report comes out that says team coaching is a way for nonprofits to be able to deal with some of the challenges that they're facing. Tell me what came next. I mean, so they're like,
Oh,
okay, now,
the coaching and philanthropy report spoke to leadership coaching,
yeah, okay,
spoke to coaching the EDs, the leaders, the C-suite, if you will,
yeah,
of the nonprofit sector. And it created a phenomenal infrastructure of flex leader awards across a really forward-thinking group of foundations, and has since gone on to really become a leader of developing BIPOC leadership in the sector. The group called the Leaders Trust that continues to give awards for accessing leadership coaching. And that's important and meaningful. And also, for me, a little incomplete.
why so?
A couple of reasons. I think one is for me, when we're talking about a lot of the shifts in how we view leadership in the nonprofit sector, nonprofits are way ahead of the for-profit sector in terms of thinking about how we hold power within leadership structures. How do we distribute power within the organization, right? Highly aligned for team coaching. And so
Right.
for me, that's disjointed from then giving coaching to a leader or one leader at a time, right? If we are going to learn to distribute power, we should coach organizations in a way that we share the value and the process of what coaching is. Um,
That's really interesting because in the team coaching process, one of the things that we ask the team leader, if you will, is to step back from that role
right.
and really become part of the team for that process. And so there's an equalizing effect with that team coaching.
Yeah. And in a lot of respects, doing leadership coaching and particularly developing strength in BIPOC leaders in the sector of Black, Indigenous, people of color, BIPOC, is crucial because we need to develop that leadership. And that really serves the sector to have that modality available and to continue to push on that. And if we want to strengthen things that are organizational, team coaching is an important complement to developing individual leaders, right? How do we strengthen the fiber of the organization, adjust the culture of the organization, particularly right now?
So here's what I'm hearing. So the senior leadership has been receptive to the idea of coaching and uh, fundamentally very open to sharing that, but that's leading to a problem. The team coaching is the way to help develop that leadership throughout the cohorts of the organization, as I hear you say. But what do you run into? What's the issue? What are the challenges? And why is it not penetrating this sector more if it's so valued and appreciated?
Money and time.
Yeah.
So the first is, and then I think there is Wild West, what the Wild West of coaching can be. So I think the money issue, most of us who do team coaching engagements, whether we're doing it individually with a smaller team or in partnership with a larger team, we're pricing those things 30, 40, $60,000 or more, right? And that can be profoundly out of reach for a small to mid-sized nonprofit, a sub $8 million budget nonprofit, to say, hey, where's that $60,000 or $80,000 in your budget to bring in some team coaches, particularly when the desire to call in team coaching comes out of an emergent situation. You may not have that budgeted in the moment, because it's something suddenly happens, or not so suddenly, but again, it's emergent. And so it may not be something that was identified in the budget, and it's hard to carve out.
Wow, and that's really important because they have that need, and they're also very forward thinking in their budgeting and planning, and just I can see that issue. So we've got this great alignment between
Mhm.
team coaching, perfectly suited for the nonprofit culture, collaboration, collaborative, values driven, mission focused, and yet we're barely going into this sector. I mean, so the biggest barrier is obviously resources. So I mean, I have my experience, and I want to hear what you're doing, because I have worked with government, nonprofit, where the same thing happens. For example, just funding is being pulled from many government organizations. I've
Yeah.
worked with the National Park Service, and every year, depending on who the leader is, they have no idea who's going to be funded or what jobs are going to be eliminated, or they live in this world of we can't even plan for next year because we don't know what our budget's going to be,
Yeah.
and it's a challenging environment. Um,
So
so.
how do you get the cost down? So that's the first one. The
Or
second
is
one,
there another way? Is it always about cost?
well, I think cost is an important but not the only limiting factor. I
Okay.
think the other thing is typical team coaching engagements ask for a big investment of time with, not always, but oftentimes with coaches, a very um, opaque agenda. One of the MOs of team coaching is that the team holds the agenda. And if the team doesn't understand what team coaching is, that's a huge investment of time for something that they don't yet understand what it is, and it's delivered in a way that's unfamiliar.
Mm.
And so, one of the things this model does is take a familiar framework and turn it into an on ramp. So, it subverts that concern about what the time is, because cohort based capacity building is really familiar. It's known to be effective. Teams get it. They like cross pollinating their ideas. And so it really opens the door to teams resisting putting the time in, to creating some familiarity with what this is about and a willingness to put the time in. Because now they see, now we've opened that black box of what this team coaching could be. We've given some greatest hits of what it's like to begin team coaching, and just said, we'll just start here with you. We'll meet you where you are. And then that time barrier shrinks.
Would you make that real? Describe that, what that looks like in working with, you don't have to name an organization, but one that you've done. Describe what that looks like in setup, just in facilitation and response from the client. What does it look like?
So the way Agate Initiative is structured, and I need to give full credit to Julia Wilson, who introduced this model. This is her model and gave us full blessing. She sits on our advisory committee to really build this out and tell the story and tweak it, change it a little bit. So Agate Initiative is a cohort-based capacity building model, but team coaching. And the way that we hold that is the heart of the program has 4 topics. It kind of feels like 4 modules. If you feel like it's training, it feels like 4 modules, but 4 topics. And we tell everybody from the beginning, these are the 4 topics that we're going to cover over the course of these 6 months. And for each topic, we have a group coaching session, right? We have 6 organizations in the first round of this cohort. All the members of the teams of all 6 organizations are on that session together. We introduce the material, and we do a lot of things in breakout where they are mixed among the teams. So when somebody goes into a breakout, they are with all the members of the other teams and not with anybody from their own team.
Okay, so hold on, Betsy. So this is the first thing that I'm hearing that is already different from team coaching. Instead of working with one individual organization, so, and I'm imputing by that is you're helping spread costs across multiple organizations. Correct. And instead of just doing it with one organization where the cost would be higher, we're bringing in now 6 nonprofits to be part of this module or these cohorts that you're talking about for capacity team building. Love that. And because there's so much to be benefited from, kind of peer experience sharing, if you will, right?
Yep. And
okay, sorry to interrupt. I'm interpreting for the layperson.
Well, no,
I'm making sure I understand.
Yeah, no, you're on it, and it distributes the cost.
Yeah.
It's a familiar modality.
Right.
It does, like the teams that we're working with, even though we tell them it's group coaching because we're ethical, it feels like cohort-based training. And so it feels accessible, right? And in practice, like one of our topics is conflict.
Yeah.
Right? And how to have healthy conflict. And there are things you don't want to say to your own team, but then you go into this breakout group and everybody says, oh my gosh, I have the same thing happen in my organization. And yeah, me too. And people come back from those breakouts and all the taboo of talking about this with
normalized
my team are now gone.
Right.
They're just gone. And that's probably one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we've heard is, we've talked about, one of the other topics is about resistance to change. Or not even, no, we don't label it as resistance to change. We just talk about navigating change and developing a language around how we talk about change. And it's really this beautiful coaching moment where people cross that boundary from feeling guilty about where they stand or judgmental about what's going on at their organization to, oh, this is normal. I can talk. This happens everywhere. I can talk about this with my team then. And it just opens this doorway. So it's like on the one piece, yeah, it reduces the cost a lot, but the potential that happens when you normalize a lot of this stuff that otherwise feels taboo in team coaching, it's like an accelerant.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I just think the idea of opening the discussion, that's part of what team coaching does, but it takes a while. Well, actually, it's helping the system realize how they're showing up. And what we've got here now is we've got multiple mirrors where we've got different people are reflecting back all these different perspectives from different locations, and they end up being very similar. And so it just sounds like that's an empowering process. Okay, but there's a danger.
And then I want to say, like, for each module or for each topic, we do a group coaching, and then after that we do team coaching. So the second component of each topic is now we meet with just your team, and then the team coaching actually happens.
But you've primed the pump, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
With that. So I have a question that is there a potential downside for them seeing everybody has the same problem?
Haven't found one yet. I mean, I think there's there are some inconsistencies, and there's a risk of somebody not feeling heard, or there's we've had some unevenness in the breakouts, but that's going to be the poke under the hood that we're going to do, because this is a demonstration project, right?
Right.
Julia piloted it with smaller, or not piloted, she's in her third cycle now, with legal aid organizations that are smaller. And she's got her cost scale less than half of what our cost scale is. And we made an important adaptation, building on what she's learned. But we're learning here so that we can tell Julia's story and Agate Initiative story so that we can make it effective. We don't mind running into those things. We're evaluating this. My past my past in nonprofits was doing strategic planning and program evaluation. So data is my best friend.
Right.
Um, so yeah.
So, I mean, as I was thinking, I was just thinking maybe one of the challenges would be that, all right, everybody's got this problem, so therefore the mindset is, what can we do about it? But you're saying that doesn't happen.
Mm-mm.
No, it's just it normalizes the issue. Like, okay, we need to fix it. Everybody's got it, and we're not broken.
Yeah.
We're
And
frustrated.
we're really thoughtful about how we do it. So we capture the generative side of awareness,
Right.
right? Without going too deep into the how you fix it, because I think that's a choice that we've made, and it seems to be working out. Just our goal in the group is to generate awareness,
Right.
right? Grasp, start to turn on those light bulbs, so that, if you think about this in alignment with coaching competencies, there's evoking awareness, but that transformation comes when you start to apply that and turn the light inwards.
Right.
So if you think about it in the group context, we're trying to turn on as many lights as possible. And then when we meet with the team in the team coaching session, we're continuing to turn on lights, but we're also getting them to turn that light more deeply inward and together.
Well, and that's when they fix the problem. We're not hired to fix the problem. We're
Mm-mm.
we're there to help them fix their own problem, and that's when the magic, I think, really happens. But so the cost barrier is, in your experience, how big of a deal is this? And when you say you're aiming for sub 10,000, what does that tell us about where the current pricing sits for most engagements? So you talked about maybe a 60, 50,000. That's a over a period of time. I mean, that's initial starting and then ongoing coaching. So when you're talking about sub 10,000, you're talking about the whole program to get them where they need to go in those cohorts. Is that the entire organization, or is it blocks within the organization?
It's usually going to be the leadership team. And the way that we got to sub 10,000 is, this has been my practice for my own coaching for the stuff that I do when I'm not working on this initiative, right? That's who I serve. Mostly $2 to $8 million is my sweet spot of organizations. And what I noticed and have tested and validated is that below $10,000 is either available within a professional development budget at this size, or it's an easy add-on ask to a funder. It's a no-brainer ask to a funder. When you start getting past that, you start hitting, either they have to plan for it far ahead of time, or it's a bigger ask to a funder. But usually when we can keep it that low, that is oh, I have that in my budget, is the response that we get. And it's also, like, particularly in the $7,000 to $8,000 range, if you want to do a professional development program for a person, right? If I want a leader to go through a training program, it's in the $7,000 to $10,000 range. And so the signal of keeping the cost at that point, it's a very intentional. It's like, you can send one person to figure something new, or you can send your whole leadership team.
That's
Same dollar, bigger impact.
yeah, that's a great message. And how are you seeing the response to that, to that messaging and that pricing?
Positive. I mean, right now we are giving it away, right? For the first two cohorts, because the third challenge, you asked me what the challenges are,
Yeah.
for nonprofits, like why isn't it happening on its own, is coaching is a little bit of a wild west, right? Everybody I know who's an expert in something is labeling themselves as a little C coach, which makes it really fascinating for the big C coaches and really confusing for nonprofits who are trying to understand what does it mean when I get coaching, right? So one of the things that we're starting to see is we're getting uh, these more savvy nonprofits who are looking at the content of what's being delivered. They're not so worried about what it's called. Not all of our materials use the word coaching front and center. We're talking about team transformation. We're speaking to their challenges. What are they going through? Strategic shifts, staff turnover, leadership changes. Um, it's clear. Again, we're ethical about making sure they know what the modalities, because there's three modalities here. Making sure they know what they are, but they're not what we're leading with, because we just want them to understand what they're stepping into. And so our first two cohorts are coming in to get this for free while we build the evidence base, while we learn from them. And today, it turns out, is the last official day of accepting applications for our second cohort. It's just wild.
What?
There are still spots.
So if you're looking to get in this, and is there any geographic limitation in terms of participation? So they could be anywhere in the world?
Anywhere in the world. There are some time zone considerations. So we have some African organizations that have put in to participate, and that becomes like some of the sessions are at 9 p.m. for them, but that's their choice. We've had organizations from India apply. One of the organizations we have has some people in Western Europe uh, applying. So it's out there. It's especially well suited to distributed teams because it is virtual and all of it's virtual. But we have teams that are working, really close to each other that are doing this and making it work. And we adapt with them.
How are you getting the word out? How are they hearing about this?
I think it would be easier to get the word out about this than it has been, but mostly on LinkedIn. We have some nonprofit partners, like Nonprofit Learning Lab has been a tremendous partner. Resilia has been a partner. They
I
are.
mean, I'm in Africa, India. How do I hear about this? Just on LinkedIn?
They're usually a part of one of our nonprofit supporting organization partners.
Right.
So there's some network that they're getting information about this from. Some other team coaches who are really excited for us to get our evidence base out, like you, are helping us spread the word about it, because this is an attempt to raise the tide for all of us.
That's right. So, I mean, part of what we're doing here is, I mean, our audience is meant to be team coaches, but many of them may run into a client or a referral that they don't want to take, who won't discount their fee or don't have the way to do that, and might refer that to you. Or it's just this model is very different from what they deliver. Um,
Yeah.
I have found for me and my nonprofit clients is that we usually find a sponsor that is willing to cover. Unfortunately, though, we're not always able to do as much of the ongoing training because so that's a weakness, because to do that we need to get to that 50 to 60 $70,000 range, but we can get partway there, and so there's so many weaknesses with the nonprofit sector, and you are solving a very, very important problem. So I'd love to hear how the first cohort went.
Well, I'm going to tell you about the first cohort, but promise me we'll get to talk about, like, the team transformation intensive is a tool, but I want to make sure we talk about the mission and why this
Well, let's do
matters
that
for
first
other
then,
team coaches. Yeah. Let's go there. So
please.
one of the things, and this I think is near and dear to your heart, is that we need to tell the story. We need an evidence base. And one of the crucial things in that evidence base is demonstrating change. And so one of the huge partners in this, and Alexis has been a tremendous ally in making sure that we can afford to measure is using the Team Diagnostic Assessment with everybody. We're using the Team Diagnostic Assessment because it's been around for
20
decades.
years. Yeah.
Huh?
20 years.
Yeah. And it's psychometrically valid. So when it comes to doing the research piece of this, we feel really confident about the changes that we're seeing. We will be partnering with you to do some comparisons. Years ago, not even like, I think it was a year ago, we did some talk about how constructive interaction, how that willingness to do conflict really is different in nonprofits. And also being able to tell that story with a lot of confidence that this makes a difference and how. And so that is meaningful to the nonprofits to have a metric to see the change, but meaningful to our nonprofit mission. This is a fiscally sponsored project through the Social Good Fund. Its nonprofit mission is to learn and disseminate the information. So when it comes to other nonprofit coaches, Agate Initiative isn't trying to corner the market on offering this. We're trying to tell the story and put the tool out there to say, here's a way to do it.
Here's a methodology that you can adapt.
Go, run with this. Be fruitful and impact the sector in a powerful and meaningful way. And we already had some interest from 2 coaches in Nairobi, because the organizations that are coming to us from Kenya, we may not, the US based coaches that we have, we may not be the best to serve that.
Right.
And I'm not trying to build a company here. We're trying to demonstrate and tell the story and do it with really good evidence.
Well, and that evidence is really one of the things that has enabled team coaching to work with major organizations all around the world to just the system works. And when you apply it everywhere it's applied, it gets results. And I mean, those of you who are listening, and hopefully you're familiar with it. If you're not, I mean, we'd love to start off with measuring the system where they are before we actually start doing any work with them. So how are they showing up in terms of the culture? How are they showing up in terms of their ability to fulfill the mission, to impact the community? That's the productivity side, if you will. And then the other part of that is how do they sustain that? How do they maintain that? Which is the relationships, which are the values, which are all those things that are so important. You have to have both of those. And so we're measuring where they are, and it really, really helps. I imagine then with the, with limited budget, the concern I would have is typically if you're working with one nonprofit, you would say there are some areas that are strengths. We won't focus on those as much. We can actually target the time we spend on development and coaching in certain areas of need. But if you're doing that with a group cohort, what do you see as different in terms of the diagnostic results? Are they do you find patterns, or are now you dealing with all the team performance indicators, if you will?
I mean, I think in general, when you think about all the different indicators, is the data is information, but it's not the project plan. It's not the coaching plan. It's just information. And so oftentimes the leaders come in with a perspective about what they would like to see shift. And so then they get the team diagnostic results and they're learning about these topics, which we know always tend to come in. They're just good starter dough topics, this on-ramp to more powerful team coaching. It feels like useful information about what assets can we lean into and what may hold us up, as opposed to more traditional certified team performance coach approach, which might be, hey, let's work on this indicator. Sometimes that's what they choose to do. Sometimes those were the goals they had at the beginning. Sometimes we do see there was a communication rupture, and communication is the performance indicator they really want to work on.
Right.
But sometimes they're coming in with a perspective of, leadership has changed and we need to find new ways of working together. And so then the indicators are really, they give a menu. They give a lot of good information, and it's like a menu of, how should we do this?
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
really
so
beautiful.
if a coach is listening to this and they are interested in working more with nonprofits or haven't found a way to do that, how do they start? How do they connect with you? I mean, we'll get all your information. You can do it now
Yeah.
or at the end. But how do they? What's the process for them?
Yeah. I would say first follow us on LinkedIn, because that's the place where we're really going to start to share more and more information. Go to Agate Initiative website, so agateinitiative.org. And there's a place to sign up there for our mailing list. Have some compassion that we're in our early days. This is very bootstrapped. It looks slick, but it's very bootstrapped. And it is our goal to build more communication, to build that network of people that want to have that conversation, to expand that circle. Right now, we are wrapping the first cohort, and we're going to be doing a formal evaluation of that with an outside partner, to so that we can make sure we get the best possible. So we're going to do the evaluation plus the before and after team diagnostic data, and we'll start to tell that story. And similar to what Julia did for me with her model, we're going to tell that story. We have drafted some preliminary white papers. We've 3 that are in, we can't really tell what's happening until things actually happen, but we have 3 kind of scoped papers that we plan to share. But we will be sharing, this is what the model looks like and how you do it. And I think about the hot dog stand theory of economics, right? If you are going to put the next hot dog stand on the beach, do you put it next to the other hot dog stand or far away? And economics will tell you, you put the hot dog stands together and they both do better. This is,
Wow.
and so I think we want to invite people in to build this for themselves, to connect to us. We believe in abundance. If we begin to say that this is a thing and support each other making these offerings, that's what's going to start to catch the flywheel here.
Wow. Well, this is so it's so exciting, and I mean, I have lots more questions, and I know that you've got a lot on your plate, and you've got meetings this afternoon. I think we've gone on maybe a little bit longer than we intended. But
You didn't ask me one important thing, which is, why is it called Agate Initiative?
what? I have no idea. Why? Why
So
don't you tell
most
me?
people don't know what an agate is. An agate is a
isn't it a
rock.
gem?
It's a rock. And hang on, I've got it. I didn't have it handy, so I have to reach for it.
But you sure
But
it's not Latin? Agate?
it's not. But this is what agate looks like from the outside, right? It just looks like a rock, right? And it's not going to zoom in.
Oh, this is
But when
great.
you open it up, all the beauty is on the inside.
Yes, but with some polishing.
With some polishing. But the other thing is that I will not shy away from having an appreciation for all things metaphysical. Not all things, but some things.
Something's
But the metaphysical attribute of agate, for those who believe in it, is that it has the power to shift the negative into the positive.
Wow. How does it do that? I mean, just hold it,
It's the power of opening it up.
and that's a very, very powerful metaphor, and it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier when that leader opens up the experience and the learning and the opportunity to develop their team. That's when that beauty starts to emerge, and it's so rewarding, Betsy, to see the world starting to shift. I mean, it seems like we're fighting so many forces in the world that want to create negativity. So how do we counterbalance that? Well, with an agate. I love that. What a great metaphor. What am I missing? I had lots more questions, And thank you so much for talking about the team diagnostic that you're using that. We've talked about cultural fit, the nonprofits, just different than corporations and how they deal it. And in your Agate approach is just really honoring those differences and working with those cultural differences in a way that I think is absolutely brilliant. Um, what am I missing? What did I? Because I created these questions. You created you've got all this knowledge, and I'm just learning. And so I'm like, what if I'm a coach and I work in the nonprofit sector? What should I be thinking? How? Because I'm not that. I mean, that's not my focus, and so I'm not necessarily asking all the great questions. So put yourself in my, if I was that coach, what would I want to know?
I think you'd want to know, how do I do this?
How do
And
you do it?
how do you do this? I think what I did was I looked at what Julia was doing and I thought about how uniquely would I approach this? And I made some adaptations. We have elements that she doesn't have. We played, and I brought in other coaches and we played to our strengths. I think I would say, what ground conditions need to exist for this thing to really take on, and how can I support that? And I think that, we're really looking for evangelists around what this is to support and push forward so that we can, bring everybody into it. And so I think that if I was a coach looking to get into this, I'd find ways to support those that are going to share this message. How can I help that happen? And then I think um, being willing to just throw yourself into it. Look at who are your partners that you want to do this with, because this is not a solo enterprise. We've got a program manager, Astrid, and I've got my co-coaches, Michelle Davis, who is doing the team-facing work with me, and then we also have Edwin Vega, who is working with the leaders independently so that they have support while this happens. And what would it look like for you? Share that with us. We want to share stories, share evidence, and be a place where people can come to find out about it. So I'd be looking to find my own flavor of it and partner with telling that story.
And those things are so important. I'm going to ask a more maybe mercenary question.
Go for
Um,
it.
when you are discounting the way you are, um, can you afford to maintain doing this type of work if you are doing that? It seems to me that you can, because you're actually working with multiple organizations, and that helps create some economies of scale. So as a
Yep.
coach, you're able to profit. I know that when we're talking about nonprofits, that may sound mercenary, but we
It's
need to
not
be
mercenary.
right. We need to be. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because a lot of people say, "Well, I just want to make the world a better place." Well, guess what? You can make the world a better place when you can afford to continue to do that. And so that's what I'm suggesting here.
This cost model honors the coach making a reasonable nonprofit rate and the nonprofits paying something that's reasonable for them to pay.
It is a win-win.
It's a win-win. So basically the budget of this pans out that we're able to pay coaches reasonable. And it's not equivalent to what a multi-billion-dollar corporate pays for team coaching, but it's a good, and I'll just be transparent about it. We peg the coaches at $250 an hour. And I know there's coaches that like to make a much higher hourly. I know there are coaches that think more about package pricing, and we're getting there. But it's 250 for, not per coached hour, 250 per hour, and that includes all of our planning meetings and all of those other things. And so it is a very reasonable income for this type of team coaching that somebody might not otherwise command for what the nonprofit can afford to pay.
Well, and yes, and here's the and. This is an additional sector to where you're already working, so it's something that you can add to the work that you're doing, and people want to give. People want to serve. They want to have work that has great meaning. And this is a way to really make a huge impact all around the world. There's so many worthy nonprofits that are truly struggling to fight the negative. Let's give them a hand, right? Let's give them a hand, and I love this. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I was so engrossed I forgot to press some buttons, but I didn't want to press the wrong one anyway. And I want you to just please, for our listeners, how can they reach you? Give us your website, your LinkedIn, and if there's any links that you want to provide, I can put those in the show notes. So if people want to go to the show notes and get a link to the website, or to the, if you've got a download of the process, anything.
Well, we don't have a lot of resources to share to other coaches yet. It's coming. But agateinitiative.org is where to find us on Agate Initiative. And then Betsy@b3coach.com is my email, or my website, b3coach.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn. You have to have my email to find me on LinkedIn, just so it doesn't get too crazy. But you can message me through my website at b3coach.com, or ask any question you want for agateinitiative.org.
And I heard you say, be patient, because you are busy and you are working hard. And so, we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can.
Exactly. All right.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us at Teams Unleashed. And we hope that you are out there enjoying the work that you're doing and enjoying the art and science of working with teams. Here is a new and fresh approach to doing this amazing work. And reach out to Betsy, and she will absolutely be so excited to help you. Thank you all, and hopefully you'll listen again to us next time.